Tom Downey here for Titans Today. We're taking a look at the ESPN roster projection, but focusing more on some of these surprise cuts that were made by ESPN as opposed to just being boring and breaking down all the players who made it. Tennessee is in the midst of a roster overhaul right now, and the ESPN projections, I thought, had some very interesting keep/cut decisions. Now, Titans training camp, maybe it's not like the true training camp is fully here and underway with pads on and whatnot, but it's here. We're finally back to football. If you are excited about Titans training camp, then like today's video. It should be every single person who's liking it, so don't be the one who's not. Now, I know the headline says 5. I'm going to cheat and group a couple different players together because I can. Of note, I think 2 offensive linemen who Tennessee acquired from the Browns, who I think have ties to Bill Callahan. I think Callahan wanted them in the building, were not a part of the ESPN projection. That's Jerron Christian and Leroy Watson, the fourth, both offensive tackles. In the ESPN projections, 9 offensive linemen make the roster, and it's 9 that makes sense. Latham, Skoronski, Cushenberry, Charles, Petit-Frere, Radunz, Brunskil, Duncan, but not the other 2 offensive tackles. So I think, honestly, beyond JC Latham, I think spots 2 through 4 on your OT depth chart with the starter at right tackle are very much up for grabs at the current moment. Here were the 2023 stats for Christian. Look, it wasn't great. I don't think he played that well in Cleveland, but they chose to sign him after Bill Callahan was with him all season long. I think that is an indication that Callahan signed off on it. Not only did they sign Christian, they traded for Leroy Watson. They made that move, I think it was in April, early April. They went out and said, we need him on the team. Even though Bill Callahan was there. They went out and added him. With Bill Callahan there. So I know he didn't play much last year. We cannot glean much information from 55 snaps. But trading for a guy that your O-line coach just was coaching makes me think your O-line coach wants him on the team. And you hire Bill Callahan to maximize your roster on the offensive line, develop players, and give him insight into who's going to make the team. Give him some influence as well. Now, of note, you could go with 10 offense linemen, I think, if you wanted to. I think one of those spots went to 7 receivers who made that ESPN roster projection. Obviously, Ridley and Hopkins and Boyd and Burks and Nick Westbrook-Akina. Jaquan Jackson made it, and so too did Kyle Phillips. I was semi-surprised that Phillips wasn't a cut because 7 receivers is a lot, especially when Jackson's going to help on special teams. Are Burks and Phillips and NWI all going to be active on game days? Not so sure. So when it comes to the wide receiver room in Tennessee, how many wide receivers end up making the Titans roster this year? Regular season active roster, of course. It's the pinned comment on this video. So if the ad plays, ignore it. No one cares. Head down there and let me know how many wide receivers you think make the roster. Some surprise cuts here at defensive tackle. And I'll group Marlon Davidson and Quinton Bohanna together. Both guys have a chance, I suspect. So we'll see what happens this time around. The only 5 defensive linemen made the roster for Tennessee. It was Sebastian Joseph Day, Tavondre Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons, Keandre Coburn, TK McClendon. Nothing overly shocking there. But it is only 5 in what is a pretty overhauled room. Now, Davidson played a little bit last year for Tennessee. He was mostly with the Atlanta Falcons. He ended up getting cut and went on injured reserve, got released. Briefly was with New England, didn't do anything, ends up landing in Tennessee and contributed a little bit. So too did Quinton Bohanna. Now, I'm cheating here by splitting his 2023 stats. He was with the Cowboys as a backup nose guard type of player. Maybe the presence of Keandre Coburn means you don't need Bohanna, and Davidson ends up making more sense for the organization. But he flashed a little bit with the Lions. Titans cleaned him off of waivers. They poached him from the practice squad out in Detroit. Put him on the roster. New defensive scheme. We'll see how Bohanna fits into that. But both those guys spent time on the Titans roster last year. It's kind of one I think you should make note of. Today's show is made possible by Game Time. Game Time is the place for last-minute tickets. It is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, kind of like a live photo. Take your phone and look around and get an actual good view so you're not, blocked out by a foul pole or whatever. They've got last-minute deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, even an hour after it starts. The game time guarantee means you will always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Got last-minute tickets, flash deals, lowest price guarantee, and they're going to give you $20 off your first purchase if you download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but create your account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off your first purchase. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. Make sure you download Game Time today for those last-minute tickets at the lowest price guaranteed. One of the more surprising names, I think, on this list was a draft pick by Tennessee. That's Jalen Harrell, the edge rusher out of Michigan, who was a late 7th-round pick. There's competition coming at edge. I think Caleb Murphy, Rashad Weaver, and Jalen Harrell, maybe someone else surprises or there's an injury to kind of make it clear who makes the team. I think those three guys are competing for 2 spots. And historically speaking, teams try to get that organization, that decision-making group, the structure at the top, the GM head coach, their draft picks on the roster. It's not really Rashad Weaver, by the way. Caleb Murphy was a UDFA. Titans had, or ESPN, Teron Davenport, had those 2 players making the roster over Jalen Harrell. I liked the Harrell pick. I think that it makes some sense. Denard Wilson coming over from the Ravens, who was using Mike McDonald, who coached Jalen Harrell at Michigan. I think the schematics are going to have some overlap there, not necessarily one-to-one, but I think there is some semblance of familiarity. It's kind of like you haven't heard the word said before, but you've read it type of deal, or vice versa. He was somewhat productive at Michigan, not a superstar player, but that defense was good, and he made some impact splash plays. Plus a draft pick getting cut, always a red flag. So what do you think Tennessee ends up doing here? Will all of their draft picks end up making the roster? Y for yes, N for no. Go ahead and sound off for me in the comments section of today's video. Next up is Luke Gifford. And Gifford maybe isn't like wow, they cut him, but more like, they cut him, huh? The Titans have given the linebacker room an overhaul. I am not opposed to doing that given what they have on the roster right now. Gifford has been a core special teamer. And I think that role probably carries more value this year with the new kickoff rules. Of course, they could simply put Gifford on the practice squad as a vested veteran. He is not subject to waivers. They'd save some money. But still, I was a little intrigued that Tennessee went with 4 linebackers. Now, Jamal Adams was part of this, and you could call him 4.5. Kenneth Murray, Jack Gibbons, Cedric Gray, James Williams. For a team that I think was going to run more 2 linebacker packages, 4 is still kind of light. Most teams run at least 5 when it comes to that. So it also means no Chance Campbell, etc. on that roster. Gifford's numbers do not pop off the screen. You're going, Tom, he had 6 tackles. It's a surprise cut. He does a lot of stuff on special teams. Like when you're building out your 53-man roster, that's like player 53, who's also player 48 on game day, or whatever the number ends up being, depending on how many people you call from practice squad, whatever. Gifford contributes. He does not have the same startup as Cedric Gray does or James Williams does, but it's not just a straight meritocracy if you're picking the best 53 players. Roles have to be filled as well. So name a notable player who you think ends up getting cut in Tennessee. Go ahead and sound off for me in the comments of today's show. Name a notable player, i.e. not, we're not going to do like, the 5th string receiver, but name a player you think gets cut. I will cheat again. So 5 became what, 8? It's fine, whatever. 2 safeties, Mike Brown and Shyheim Carter. I put them on here because they played last year for Tennessee. They were on the roster. Now, the roster projection at safety from ESPN was Amani Hooker, Elijah Molden, Jamal Adams, and Jackson too, which I don't think is overly surprising. But Mike Brown did play snaps last year for Tennessee. He had 7 tackles and a pass. He got a start, technically speaking. He's been a veteran safety. Shyheim Carter can kind of do some in-the-box stuff, some nickel stuff, I should say, as well. So I think those are, you were on the roster last year for a team that I don't think it has that many clear-cut surprise cut options. Carter does stand out. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you guys are subscribed. YouTube.com/Titans Today. We are trying to gain ground on our Ravens channel here at Chat Sports. We're still lagging behind. But if you made it to the end of the video, you clearly like what we had to say. So make sure you're subscribed and you don't miss future videos here on Titans Today.